Welcome to Melanated and Spiritually Woke. I'm your host, Adorable Earth Angel. I'm a holistic wellness educator of 12 years with a master's in public health, energy healing of 7 years, and have been a Black female spiritual alchemist my whole life. Each week, we'll be sharing uplifting, spiritually focused wellness practices to best support you in regaining your personal power, or we'll have special guest interviews with the same intention. This show is in service to all those listening, and especially for folks of color who are seeking information to support their physical, mental, and emotional spiritual awakening. These practices will help you live your best life. Thank you once again for joining us today with Melanated and Spiritually Woke. And I say us because it's very clear that when we come together in this way, that you showing up and listening into the show is just as much of a co-creative factor as in me connecting with divine energy that is flowing through me. And so I just want to talk about the mechanics of how the show works, because it's definitely part of it is that I am tapping in to source energy, and I'm speaking out of a body that is Black and female. And that in itself is important because there's a way in which information comes through me that it doesn't come through other spiritual teachers and wellness teachers. But a huge part of it is that the things that I'm speaking to and talking about are completely specifically related to the people who are listening to it. So what I can actually do is tap in to your consciousness and to what's going on in your life, and in some way, just literally just be a vessel. And that's what I pray for. Every time I come on and do this show, I pray that whatever I'm saying is timely for you, that it's reaching you right when you need it, the message exactly that you need to hear, that I'm speaking the truth, and that I'm really allowing you to connect with something that you already know that is true, which is that you are at a place in your life where you are coming into being an uplifter. Now, you're probably already an uplifter if you're listening to this. You're someone in the community who is doing something to be uplifting, who's being positive, who's bringing about a lot of change. And it could be that you do that through being an amazing parent. It could be that you do that through being an amazing coworker or being just an amazing friend. No matter how it is that you're being an uplifter, I know that that's who I'm talking to right now, the uplifter within you. Maybe you're also a teacher of sorts. And so today we're really going to be vibing. Thank you for joining. Thank you for vibing with me. Every time I get on here, it tickles me to just start to feel this energy building with this show. You know, we've been doing it. I guess it's going on the second month. Is it? I don't know. We started in June. What is it? Yeah. So we're already like in like the late of August. So, it's coming together like this energy, and, this only the beginning. It's only the beginning because we're waking up as a people, as a melanated people, we're waking up. And I hope it's not confusing when I use the word melanated, because I recognize that this show is coming from a perspective as a Black woman, but also it's recognizing that there's a lot of brown and Latinx and a lot of different people, a lot of queer people, LGBTQ, trans people who might identify and relate to being in a space of being spiritual and being different. And this show is kind of for the underdogs. This show is for the underdogs. It's also for the folks who maybe come from a traditional Christian background, but who are open-minded. You know, like this show hopefully in some way inspires this understanding that God comes in all shapes, sizes, and forms. And for me, it's like no matter what religion, whatever spirituality, the spiritual practice that you're connected with, that you're recognizing that all of these traditions are ultimately connecting us to source, to God, and that there's different pathways to get there. Kind of like a math problem, right? Solve this math problem. There's different ways to get to the same number. And so we're all in this together. We're all in this place of being uplifters. And I really want to speak to that. I really want to speak today to the human experience that you might be feeling as it relates to being a spiritual being, and sometimes often the contradictions, and sometimes often the confusions that may surface as you navigate your life in coming into greater personal power. And so I've talked about in the past show, I've talked about spiritual awakening a lot. And I want to dive deeper into that conversation today, because I think it's so important that we honor the fact that we are humans having a spiritual, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. There we go. I caught myself. That we're spiritual beings having a human experience, that we're in these, what I heard an astrologer the other day call it, our cages are, are like our cages, it's like our souls inside of a cage and it's our body. But I think definitely your body can be a cage, like, especially as you go through the spiritual experience. A lot of people, including myself, have felt a spiritual awakening first as being trapped, being in a cage, feeling locked up. Maybe, and within that, a lot of people call that, AKA depression. A lot of times when we're going through a spiritual awakening, there could be a lot of depression. And there could also just be a feeling of stuckness, and just something in the consciousness that I want to speak to today that is really coming through as a clear message for us. It's like the mantra of today is in this recognition that nothing that you're doing right now is by mistake. Nothing, I repeat, nothing. The job that may feel mundane, the interactions or people that may feel this and that way. Every single thing that's happening in your human experience is important and it matters. And I hope you can feel the truth of that. And it can feel daunting at times because a lot of things seem mundane, or it feels like, man, I am really not getting my stuff together. I am really not doing this and that. And a huge part of it is that everyone here, let me back up. So everyone here has a purpose. Every single person listening to this show has a divine purpose that is just your purpose to fulfill. Your spirit said, I know, I'm going to go forth. I'm going to come into this body. I'm going to have this family. I'm going to have this circumstance. I'm not going to remember it. I'm going to, they call it spiritual amnesia, right? We don't actually really remember why we're here. And then we go through our hero's journey. And then there's the aha moment. We're like, oh, right. Oh, okay. Yeah, this is my life's purpose. And a huge part of that is surviving the journey. Some people are like, I'm done. They exit the bodies before they get to the good part. And so it's like, for those of us that are like, I'm in it for the long haul, I'm not going to exit my body. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to do my life's work. I'm going to do my mission. It can be daunting because we're hit with this 3D reality of so many pressures and demands. We're hit with the bigger political landscape, the bigger economic landscape, the educational landscape, the prison industrial complex. We're hit with institutionalized racism. So there's so many things that we're facing and connecting with as melanated people that in some way it's all connected to our spiritual path. It's all connected to this divinity and what we're here to clear, what we're here to heal. We specifically, our human lived experience as melanated people is the very thing that is our destiny to some way alleviate. I like to think of my role here is to really alleviate the energetics and the disease that is oppression. Because for me, it is a disease. And for me, like in the past, how I would have addressed, my life's purpose around healing that would have been as an activist. I was an activist for many years. I moved up here when I was in college. I moved up here I live in the Bay Area. This show is brought to you by Oakland, California, but I lived in San Francisco for many years. And in San Francisco State, I moved up here, and that's when I first had my awakening as a Black woman, because I grew up in Pasadena, California, and there was nothing political There was nothing politically activated about my childhood. My mother did a great job. I had like black dolls. Like I had only black dolls. Like my mom she was rocking it. So I had no issues with like being pretty as a black person. But then when I got into school, there was this understanding that it was so clear. It was so clear. There was this understanding that I was black and that wasn't a good thing. And no one actually ever said that much to me. My teachers never really said that to me. Other students didn't clearly spell that out, but it was very clear that that's what was happening. And there were some moments where I just knew it was like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not this enough. And some would say, wow, it's a tragedy. You're informed by this society, which is saying that you're less than. And I would say, yes, but if I kept it in that context and didn't bring into it a spiritual understanding of what that moment meant for me, and that moment and many moments after that moment throughout my formal education would help to define what it is I'm here to heal, that the very thing that may feel like this oppressive force within our lives, things that have throughout our lives knocked us down, is the very thing that we are here to heal on the planet. And what better way to heal something than to have had a lived experience? The lived experience, as you're listening here, your lived experience is the very thing that is going to transform the planet. And I dare say, you've already done some things, right? You've already done some things. And here's the thing about us. It's like, there's ways in which, we've come as melanated peoples, in our own rights and regards. Folks who have been in some way oppressed and haven't been in the conversation and haven't been at the table of power and decision making. There's some ways in which we may come with a chip on our shoulder, and a huge part of what spirituality is about, and a huge part of what this show is about, is to recognize that there within that we still have to do our healing work. We are here to do big things, and we're here on a mission. We're here to change the world. And yet, at the same time, we still have to do our healing work. And that sometimes can feel like, oh my God, not only have I been wounded in this lifetime by this world, but I have to then pick it up and heal the world of the very thing I've been wounded of. And in order to do that, I have to heal myself. You're telling me I have to do all that labor? And it's like, that's why you signed up for this body. That's why you signed up for this identity. Because your soul was like, I got this. I'm strong. And I'm here to experience this. I'm here to experience this. There's so many other experiences that you could have had, but you chose this experience. And so a huge part of why we're getting into spirituality, why we even care about this, to be melanated and spiritually woke, is to recognize that we are traveling through a space and time of healing the disease of oppression while liberating our own individual needs of healing, while liberating our ancestors and clearing the path for 7 generations forward. Is that not a mouthful? It's like, and you can stop me you can't stop me because this is radio, but you can listen to this again. We're going to put this in a podcast format so you can listen to this show again. But I want to restate that, the definition of being melanated and spiritually woke is being of this earth and allowing yourself as a spirit to come here and letting yourself be in a place of being wounded by this earth, being hurt by this earth, by your parents, by society, by all these things. And yet rising above that energy to be the one that transforms the very things that have wounded you while doing your own individual healing work for yourself, for your soul to feel that liberation from that oppression and those challenges, while liberating your ancestors, because energetically, we're not just doing this for ourselves. There's stuff that happened before we got on the scene, while clearing the path 7 generations forward so that the future babies that are coming through are healing on a greater level still. And then there's another layer. And the other layer, that, is, I don't know, I to this audience, I try to keep it real. I want to speak to where people might be at. I don't want to get too controversial. It's already controversy enough that I even have a show that talks about these things. But you know what? These are the times we're in where people are ready to have these conversations. And so within this framework that I understand, within the teachings that I connect with, a lot of different Buddhist teachings, I listen and I read and I research and I connect with teachings from across all of the religions and traditions. I connect with this, I call them ascended masters, Jesus, Buddha, these different types of teachers, that have created an understanding. And within that understanding, there's this understanding of reincarnation, right? That our energy goes from this body and then it goes into another iteration and it connects with the Newton's first law of it's like, energy is not created, nor is it destroyed. That where do you think all of our energy goes? Why do you think it is that we even feel ancestors as melanated people? Because that energy wasn't destroyed. Like the energies don't get destroyed. They build on top of each other. And so I guess this is a really long-winded way of saying that I believe on top of us healing our destiny, healing, mending the things that were done to us in some way that clears and heals the world of the disease of oppression. I believe that we individually owe it to ourselves to heal and not, I'm not saying like we're just sitting here having a healing marathon, like we're just going to always feel like we're broken. But what healing for me means is that that you don't feel like there's any barriers to you having a successful, happy life. That is healing. That you don't feel like you're burdened by being able to move forward. And that there isn't an energetic block. There isn't a traumatic block on your life. That is the definition of healing for me. It's not that because you could foreseeably get to a place where you're able to move forward. Does that mean that everything ever is healed? No, maybe not. But I don't think that we have to walk around being 110% healed. I know I'm not, and I'm doing the show. Like I'm not completely 110% healed. And I don't think that that's actually ever even a thing for anybody. If you have a human experience, there's going to be pain and suffering. There's going to be contrast, so then again, 7 generations back, our ancestors, the things that the traumas and the tragedies and the energetics that have been trapped, right? That is cleared because we're the furthest extension. We're the furthest whisper of our ancestors. We're the furthest breath. So we heal that just by being successful in this existence. Then what that means is that the buck ends here, right? That means that all the babies that come forth through our healed bodies don't have the energetics. They don't have the DNA of the same level of challenges that we have. So they're at a whole different frequency. And that, for me, that's why it's so important that we heal as a people, because we're giving birth to future generations of melanated children who can then be in their power in a way that we were never able to even begin to understand, which is clear, right? Like your grandparents, probably were in a different context and relationship to their social power, to their economic power, and to their spiritual power, even maybe, and I say spiritual power because, there are some people who are really firmly connected to spiritual practices or to religions that sometimes go against what it means for them to be melanated. That's another controversial topic. And I don't want to get into that right now because I really want to get to what I was here to talk about, which was spiritual awakening. So I guess I'm breaking down these components because the spiritual awakening is what you need in order to actually do what you're here to do on earth. Regardless of all the people you see that might be in the business world, let me tell you, all these business people, all these CEOs, they are connected to spiritual practices. They may not spout it from the mountaintops. They may not, they may not be out of the spiritual closet, but best believe anyone who's rocking millions and billions of dollars is connected to a spiritual practice, multiple spiritual practices. It's impossible not to be connected because you're tapping into this universal energy. And a huge part of why I'm doing the show is because I'm in my mind, I know that a huge part of the people that are listening to this are coming into their personal power in ways that they've never seen themselves do. And I want you to know that you're not crazy, that you are coming into spiritual power, that you may be feeling the sensations of your vibration rising, that also within that sometimes creates a sense of crisis because the ego's like, whoa, slow the roll. What you mean? I'm like, not this person. It's like waking up in the Matrix, right? You're like, what you mean I'm not XYZ? What you mean I'm not this? And so there's ways in which we're coming into this new frequency. And a huge part of what we're going to need is people like myself being like, keep going. You got to keep going because there's going to be so many things that come up in life, in the 3D world that block your spiritual success, that block you from raising your vibration. And here's the thing. It's hard. This is why it's so complicated to break down. You're attracting those blocks. I know, right? I'm pretty sure half the people are going to click they're like, okay, I'm done listening to Adorable. I'm done with her. Well, here's how it works. So, I mean, this is why spirituality, in this context, a universal law that I connect with, that I've spoken to them and continue speaking about. I'm going to bring more universal laws onto the show. But one universal law is the law of attraction. And within that, there's other universal laws that I could speak to. But right now, my mind's really wanting to talk about the law of attraction. And in that, as I mentioned on previous shows, you're born into this life. You're a melanated person. You're born into a momentum. And a momentum means that it means that you were born into contrast. You're born into a situation. Like for me, my personal story, I was born into a father who was heavily addicted to cocaine and alcohol and a mother who was a teenager. That was my story. That's what I was born into. So as I got on the scene, that's what was jumping off, was that energy. And I was like, okay. And so that's going to create a certain type of life experience for someone who's born into that, meaning that there was a momentum, and that was the trajectory. That was the energy that I was born into. And things were happening, tragedies, all sorts of tragedies were happening for my family and their lineage to get them to that point where he's addicted to drugs. And my mom's, it's like to get us to that point, things were happening. My mother's mother was having problems, and my mother's mother, my grandmother, her husband was addicted to heroin, right? So I'm coming into this energy, and energetically in my body, in my DNA, in my coding, there's cocaine. There's addiction in my body, in my energetics. I'm coming forth into that energy. That's embedded within me. My healing journey throughout all of the years of my life have been around healing my connections to addiction because I was born into that. So I have basically meaning like this, like if I'm born into this thing that's already going, it's kind of like a wheel that's been turning. It's like a train on a track that's been going down to Addictionville, right? I'm on this train, and in my life, first of all, I have to slow this train down. I could stay on the train and keep rocking it out. I could have gone into crack cocaine and alcohol. I would have been a rock star at that life. It was a family tradition. I could have totally rocked that life. But I was like, you know what? I came in and I was like, oh, hell no. I knew as a baby, I was like, this ain't my life. I came in, I probably came in, I was like, my soul was like, I got this. My soul was like, okay, addicts, teenage, okay, I got this. Okay, I'm in. All right, get me in there. Get me in there. Those are my parents. I'm down for this. Let's do this. Right? And so I came on the scene. I was like, I'm not having any of this. And at 5, I was like, I solemnly swear I will never do drugs or alcohol. And lo and behold, 3 decades later, here I am. I've never had alcohol. I've never done cocaine or heroin. Like, I've never done these substances that are heavily addictive. I've had none of it. And I mean, I attribute that to just being a really, really powerful kid and being like, oh, like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to live this life. But here's the thing. How does this relate to the fact that I've created my own roadblocks in my life? You might be asking. Well, it's not extremely black and white when I say that. Pun intended, right? Black and white. Get it? What I mean by that is that because I was born into these circumstances that were happening before me, that in a way I internalized those things. For one, I believe that I showed up for this life, that I chose to be this life. I believe that even though you can't consciously prove it, right? Like, no one would say, I didn't consciously choose to be born into a family with that being my dad and that being my mom and all this trauma and drama. And I'm like, yeah, your ego, it wasn't born into that. Your spirit, your higher source energy is like, I'm all about that. And yeah, you got this. You can handle this. And so, I mean, that's a whole nother ballpark. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to spiritual awakening. When you spiritually awake, you recognize that the life that you're living is one that you chose. You chose this life. You're like, why would I choose struggling? You mean to tell me people in Africa are choosing to be hungry? You mean to tell me that, and it's like, yeah, like we are all here having a spiritual people having a human experience, meaning that when this is all said and done, we're going back to spirit and we're coming back and having another experience. And for those of us who are in a lucky place where we're privileged enough to choose an existence that is based on being uplifters, where we can be comfortable, it's like you have to work this life. If you're in a life where you're physically free, you're not in an impoverished country, like you better work your angles. You better work this life. And that's a huge part of what this show is about for my uplifters out there who've been feeling stuck, like they haven't been able to navigate their life. So back to this conversation. I'm a little all over the place today. I'm feeling all sorts of energies, but I want to post this show anyway. A huge part of, when I say, so okay, 0 to 7, I have these experiences. They inform a conditioning in my mind. And now I'm playing out my adulthood. And what I'm doing is I'm healing. But what also I'm doing is recognizing that as I heal, I'm going closer to my destiny. I'm going closer to my spiritual awakening, and which creates even more healing and even more destiny. But also, personally, for myself, what my soul came to see me do is adorable, was to heal from my personal self and from my ancestors. Now, the stuff that's on the road, the things that are blocking that, are the energetics within me of oppression and a trauma that I experienced that loop out in a cycle. Now, it was something that was introduced at a societal level when I was a baby through 7. But what's really going on now that I'm done with being 7 many years ago, right? 7 and onward, that's just me looping around in the energetics I was imprinted in. And this is why I say that, because a lot of people could then kind of scapegoat and say, well, I'm not making it in life because this is happening, Trump, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, we could totally go that route, but we'd be missing the point of what this is really all about. And the point is that it's important for us to always remember that we are the ones that we're waiting for, that we're not going to get a handout from the government or any political leader, no matter what they look like. And so a huge part of what we're actually doing as a society on an individual level is that our lived experience was informed by things that happened before we got here, yes. But we showed up for this. We said that we were going to heal this through our experience, meaning that we literally create the world, that we literally are creating these times. And so this conversation, I didn't like pull any punches. I didn't hold back. It's one of the conversations that I've been wanting to have for a while about what this all means. And I want to continue having this conversation, continue opening this chapter of what it means to be here. And it's controversial. It's a controversial way of looking at life, at oppression. But there was moment, and I want to keep talking about it and unpacking it. And unfortunately, I'm out of time for today. I would love for you to interact with me and tell me, like, what are some subjects you want me to talk about around consciousness and melanatedness. And, we talked about abundance recently. I'm going to have some more guests on the show. So it's all just going to be me rambling on by myself for a while. I'm going to try to pull some more beautiful people on the show. We have some beautiful people out here that are local healers. Thank you for listening. If you want to stay connected with me, I'm on the gram. I'm on Instagram, under Adorable Earth Angel. You could follow me on the gram. You can also check out my website, adorableenergy.com. We're going to be posting all of the past episodes on the website. And it's just a way to connect with me. I have a newsletter. I'm going to be more diligent about writing information on that newsletter if you're interested in the information that I'm talking about. Other than that, have a beautiful rest of your day. The music that's coming up is music that I put together every week. The music, by the way, every week on the show, the music that you hear at the end of the show, I put that together. So I even curate the music for the show. So please listen in. And I made this mix just for you. Until next time, I hope that you're filled with love and light and positivity. And I'll see you next week. Namaste.